Brandon Griewank for Bristol-Myers Squibb.
After I was diagnosed, I realized there's a whole group of people my age that aren't talking about it, who are positive, who aren't doing anything about it, who are keeping it to themselves and aren't helping to spread the word. I mean, if there's anything good that can come from having HIV, for me, I think it's educating other people.
Your will, our medicines. Together we can fight the serious diseases. Bristol-Myers Squibb. Together we can prevail.
Hey guys. Thanks for coming. I know that most of you have other things you'd like to be doing, but it means a lot that you're here. My name is Brandon Griewank. As the thing said, I am HIV positive and have been since 2006. At this time I'd like to invite the panelists to come up and join me, if you would. While they make their way up here, I'd like to let you know that I'm completely open. I am here just as a guy with HIV. I'm not a professor. I'm not a doctor. I don't work for Planned Parenthood or Corning Community College. I'm just a guy with HIV. So, as a guy with HIV, feel free to ask me anything. I've done this more than a couple times, and nobody's ever stumped me or embarrassed me or asked me anything that was offensive. So feel free at any moment. Okay, I'd like this to be an open dialogue. I feel like it works best that way. So, like I said, I was in New York City, raising all this money, helping my older friends stay alive, feeling like I was doing the good thing, fighting the good fight. Had a boyfriend. Had slept with a handful of people, all of them long-term relationships. I mean, long-term at 23, what the hell's long-term? But to me, they were long-term. I was in love. I was very in love. And then I found out that I was HIV positive. And I was like, what the fuck? I was pissed. I was sad. I was hurt. I was confused. And I felt like I had been screwed. Because I felt like I played the game. I did everything right, Only boyfriends, only for love. I'm a good Midwestern boy, raised with morals. My mom's here. But it's true. I really did. I felt gypped. I felt like this was completely unfair. How was it that I was in a position to raise money, and I was 23 years old, and I still ended up with HIV? Someone, somewhere had failed me, and failed me miserably. The reason when we put together this slideshow, every single one of those clips means a little something to me. I identify with that in some way. The teacher that's like, don't have sex, here, have some condoms. That was totally my sex ed in 7th grade. That's what I remember. That's the last time I remember hearing about HIV, prior to getting HIV, prior to raising money for HIV. Puberty. The scene with from Philadelphia, where Tom Hanks says, "I have AIDS," and he kind of looks at his hand and backs up. I've had that happen to me. How does that happen? How is it that this is something we don't even talk about, something that I was somehow fooled into getting, and yet you're not going to shake my hand, or you don't want to be in the same room as me, you don't want to hug me, you don't want your children to drink out of the same soda bottle as me? This is stuff that happens to me. So that's why, and the clip from Kids, where the girls are going over and they're like, I slept with like 9 people, yeah, I do it all. And the other girl's like, I won. I can identify with that, being like, what the hell? So that's why, each one of those clips is in there. And I think, yes?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, when you were first diagnosed, what was some of the supportive things that, like, when you went to get tested, when you were at a clinic and stuff, did the nurses, whoever tested you, were they supportive? Did you feel like they were?
Actually, that's...
As a nursing student, if I tested somebody, I would want to know kind of say something.
Absolutely, and that's a wonderful question. I'm glad that you asked that, because I think that also... Oh, yeah, of course, I love hugs. Just don't make me cry, Jesus. I have a long time to go here. Seriously, you bitches make me cry. So inappropriate. What was I talking about? Oh, the testing. Okay, so I went and got tested. We'll just talk about that. Let's talk about that day. It's a lovely summer day in New York City. August 1st, 2006. Hot as balls. And I'm sorry, it's very hot out. My mom is frowning at me. It's very hot. So it was hot. My friend and I was like, oh, I'm going to go get an HIV test today. We were co-workers. We worked together at this new place. And he was like, you know, I haven't been tested in a while. I'll go as well. Again, I'm kind of, he says to me, these are his words, not mine, I'm kind of a whore, I probably should. And I'm like, well, I'm not, but I'm gonna anyway. So he made it his appointment at a clinic downtown because my clinic was full. So we were like, oh, we got appointments at the same time, so I'll go to mine, you go to yours, we meet up afterwards, we'll go get iced coffee and some ice cream, get some lunch, do some shopping, go to work, it'd be great. So I go, I get tested, they ask me all the questions, you know, have you done this, have you done that, why are you getting tested, how will you react if you test positive, do you feel like you have a good support system, do you know anybody that's HIV positive that you would be able to turn to? Yeah, you know, I answer the questions, again, whatever, standard procedure. So then I'm waiting, and it was an oral swab test. So I knew the results should be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. And I'm waiting. And then my friend calls me and he's like, I'm done, I'm clean, let's, you know, where are we meeting? And I'm like, I'm still waiting. I'm not feeling, this is bad. He's like, oh, stop, you're being so fucking dramatic. Come on, I'm gonna meet you there. Screw it, I'll pick up coffee on the way, I'll meet you there. He shows up, I'm still waiting. He walks in, sees me waiting, and I see in his face, you know, his face drops. He's freaked out. So we're both kind of freaked out and not really talking much. Then, hey girl, sorry. And then they finally call me back. And you know how people talk about how what they were doing when JFK was shot or when the Twin Towers fell? This is the moment that I will always remember. I remember the guy coming out who asked me all these questions, very friendly at first, and he says, you know, Mr. Griewank, and he's looking down, and I look at my friend, and he's like, you're fine, but I didn't believe him, he didn't believe him. So we walk down this hallway, we go into the room, and my doctor is standing there. My doctor worked in the same clinic, but the doctor didn't ever administer the test. They have somebody special that does that. That's all he does, his job is to administer tests all day long. And my doctor's standing there, and he's standing there with his arms folded, with his head down, and I was like, oh, no. And neither one of them looked at me, they wouldn't make eye contact. And they said, Brandon, you're HIV positive. Not you tested positive, you're HIV positive. And I said, and this is where things get a little fuzzy. I said, what? You're fucking lying. Why would you say that to me? And then at some point I must have sat down. I think I said a few other naughty things. But the next thing I remember is looking at the doctor who still won't look at me. And I said, you need to look at me. And he's standing, and the guy that administered the test is sitting at his desk. And the doctor's standing, looks at me and says, I'm sorry. And I said, okay, so what now? What now? What do you're gonna tell, like, what? Oh my God. My mom, my poor mom, I have to tell my mom. I'm gonna have to tell my mom that her baby has HIV. And the guy said, oh my God, don't do that. And I said, what? And he said, oh, you're not going to want to do that. You're not going to tell anyone. You don't understand. You could lose your job. You're going to have to really think about this for a very long time before you decide to tell people. You're going to lose friends. Your family may not speak to you anymore. There's a lot to think about here. Don't start telling people. And I said, go get my friend. Go get my friend. And he said, no, Brandon, sit down. We're not going to, and I'm, you know, up pacing because I'm nervous, and that's what I do when I'm nervous. I said, go get my friend. Go get my friend. And finally, someone got my friend because I was shouting at them at this point. So my friend comes down the hallway, and my friend crumbles. He's falling. And so then I got to be Okay, because I had to take care of him. So I'm like, all right, stop crying, Jesus. Okay, we're still going to go to work. We're still going to get ice cream. It's going to be fine. So what do we do now? What do we do now? And I said, do you have some pamphlets? Like, can I get a copy of my test results? Like, what do we do? What's next? What am I supposed to do? Because that's what I do. I'm a leader. I'm a take charge kind of guy. I don't like to sit back and wait for things to happen. So once my friends started crumbling, then I didn't have to be a mess anymore. So he's a mess. I get to take care of him, and I get to, all right, let's fix this. And the guy says, well, we can set you up an appointment with a specialist. It's going to be about 3 to 6 months before you can see anyone, because they're all so booked right now. And I said, wait a second, you just told me that I have HIV, and you're not going to give me a doctor's appointment? No, we'll give you one, but it's going to be 3 to 6 months. I'm just telling you that right now. I said, okay, well, so what? When do I die? Sir, I'm sorry, I can't discuss that with you. What do you mean you can't discuss that with me? Well, I'm not a doctor, I can't talk to you about that. We need to get you a specialist. Okay, but you can't get me a specialist. So what's next? Well, next we're going to draw some blood and we're going to actually test you. Okay. So I leave. I leave with nothing. Nothing in my hand. Not a single thing. All I wanted was something tangible. Something I could walk out with. A copy of Pause magazine. A copy of a pamphlet that says, congratulations, motherfucker, you did it this time. Something. But no, I got nothing. I walked out with nothing. Even after asking for, I'm sorry, it's so inappropriate. Even after asking for a copy of my test results, they gave me nothing. And I was in no position to stand up for myself the way I probably should have, beyond screaming and yelling. So we left, and I didn't know what to do. And they said, we'll call you when the blood work comes back and confirms that you are positive. And but it's 99.5% accurate. So don't get your hopes up. Okay. Which is fine. Tell me the truth. Like, honestly, don't lie to me. I'm not gonna hold up that 0.5%. But he was so rude. He was so cold, and he offered me nothing. Nothing. And from that day on, I was like, someday, if I don't wake up from this nightmare, I'm going to figure out how to work with it, and I'm going to make sure that I do everything in my power to make sure nobody else experiences what I just experienced. So, here we are. So I had always knew about AIDS and HIV, but it was always something that happened to the older generation of gay men. It didn't happen to young guys like myself. It was something that, nobody talked about really. And those people that did talk about it, it was kind of like, well, nowadays you get HIV, you take a pill and you're fine. Nobody actually had any real honest conversations. So here I have a very, very, very good friend, and she has a son, and I remember one day driving with her and her just being like, you just let my kid drink out of your soda bottle. Do I need to be worried about that? And I was like, all right, pull over, bitch, we're having a conversation. But it happens all the time, and thank God she just said, this is freaking me out, I need to ask you about it, as opposed to cutting me out of her life. But it happens all the time, and I think a lot of times the stigma works the opposite way as well, because there is this stigma that if you're gay, you're gonna get AIDS. That it keeps people from coming out of the closet and saying, I'm gay, because they don't want to be associated with AIDS or HIV. So it works both ways. It's a double whammy. It's a tough thing to deal with. For me anyway, and it happens all the time. It happens all the time. People still think that they can look at you and tell that if you have HIV. It's always interesting. It happened last year and it happened again this year when the posters go up for the program with my face holding a sign, or last year it was written on my forehead. There are always people that are like, is he really HIV positive? I have no idea. Is he HIV positive? Do you think he's really HIV positive? And people ask you, so are you really HIV positive? And they've asked other members of Equal, so is your guys' president really HIV positive? Because they think that they can look at you and tell. And that's sad, it's awful. And on the survey it asked, how comfortable would you be with several things? And those questions are from the Kaiser Family Foundation survey. And I'm always alarmed when I look at the survey every year. And I'm a server. I work at the cellar on Market Street. Come in and have a meal sometime. Tip me well. But one of the questions is, would you be comfortable knowing that your food was prepared by somebody with HIV? And 44% of Americans said no. They said they'd be uncomfortable, either uncomfortable or very uncomfortable. 44%. And I've had situations in the healthcare field too, where when people find out that I'm HIV positive in the healthcare system, it kind of goes back to how it differs then versus now, and how sometimes it doesn't differ. I filled out paperwork on a clipboard and handed it to somebody, and before they would take my clipboard, this was last year, put on rubber gloves. I went to another clinic here locally for I had strep throat or something completely, and they just kept saying, we'd like to refer you, we'd like to refer you. And I was like, to Rebecca Moss, you'd like to refer me to, like, come on, I know, why? I'm not here because I have HIV, I'm here because I have a sore throat, treat that. Well, what we would generally do with cases like this is we would refer out. And I'm like, for strep throat? I have an HIV specialist that I see every 3 months. You don't need to send me to a specialist. You're not going to get HIV by swabbing my throat. Do you want me to do it? Give me the Q-tip. So it happens still. All right, I would say the best thing to do, first of all, is that if you know that he's gay and he's not out with the rest of his family, is to make sure that you continue to support him and tell him how valued he is and how much that you appreciate that he shared that with you. That is step number one. And then the second thing that I always have to say to people is that we have to take responsibility for our sexual health. All of us, not just gay individuals, not just straight individuals, but we all have to be responsible for our own health, especially our sexual health. We aren't having these conversations with our partners. We're just not.